Welcome to the BriteVibe podcast. At BriteVibe, we believe everyone deserves to be happy. But in today's world, everywhere you turn, there is division and negativity. At BriteVibe, we have created a global movement to bring 8 million people together who are inspired to live bright, live bold, and share bright vibes. Alone, it can be hard to change, but together we can change the world. Welcome to the BriteVibe podcast. All right, Sheri Miter, welcome to the BriteVibe podcast. So happy to have you on today. Sheri is a strengths-based career coach, and we're going to find out what that is because I don't actually know. But we are really going to talk about kind of this mid-career burnout. You know, we talk a lot about leadership. We talk a lot about business on the show. And today we're going to be leaning into, I think, something that most of us, if we've been in business for 10 or 15 or 20 years, either in a leadership role, working for somebody else, just in a job, right? I think almost anybody who has a job of any kind hits this spot at some point. I don't care how exciting the job is. You reach this point of burnout, or is this enough? Or am I living my life's purpose? Or does this adding value to others? I think everybody just finds a time where they reach a point where they ask, is this enough? Is this it? I mean, and this is kind of your specialty. So that's what you're encountering, I guess, the people that you typically coach and talk to, right?
100%. And first of all, just thank you for having me on the show, Matt. I just want to, make sure I say that too. I'm honored to be here and have this conversation with you, on a subject I'm totally passionate about. Yeah. It's an interesting thing with dynamics and one, burnout. And what I now know, really a lot of times it's not even burnout, it's boredom. And a lot of people are just bored in their career. They're not being challenged anymore. And it doesn't discriminate. Doesn't matter what career you're in. I see it in all different careers, from teachers to, corporate CEOs to vice presidents of companies to, work at home moms. I mean, there's no discrimination against where we hit this wall of, wow, is this what I'm going to be doing the rest of my life? And I don't really want to do this, maybe. Or how can I do it differently,
Right.
And a lot of times what I'm seeing is the people that I talk to, they're highly successful in what they're doing, and they are good at it.
Right.
But it may not actually be within their actual natural talents and strengths. They've learned how to compensate. They've learned how to be good, but that's why they go home exhausted.
Right.
Because they're having to force something, because skill set is different than our strength zone. And we can become really good at something, but it takes everything out of us.
Right.
Yes. So when we can work in our natural talents and strengths, it's just easy. It's that flow state of, wow, at the end of the day, you might be exhausted, but it's that different exhaustion of like, oh, that was such a good day. I am flat out exhausted, but it was an exhilarating day.
Right.
And that's when you're in that flow and you're working in your natural talents and strengths, and you don't even recognize that that's what's happening because it's so natural for you.
Right. I was going to relate that kind of through that period of COVID when the world was still in flux and still is in flux, but when it was hyper in flux. And I think so many people, because they had the time and space, because they weren't going to the office, they may be working, but not going to the office. I wasn't going to the office. Kind of had that time to step back and say, is this fulfilling to me? Is this something I want to do? I mean, is this something I want to do with the rest of my life? Or is there something else that I want to pursue that is, to your point, more in my strengths and even enjoyment? I got to a point in the process during COVID where I kind of took everything that I'd learned, all my strengths, and because I was stressing all those things that I created using my strengths were not performing very well financially, because healthcare, I'm in senior care space, owned a gym. Everything I had was really hard during COVID. So I basically discounted all those strengths and thought, I'm just never going to do any of that stuff again. I'm not going to use my deal making skills or my fundraising ability. I'm just not going to do that ever again because it's all bad, right? I kind of just lumped it all in, only then to have the joke be on me, which it usually is in life, where it's like, well, yeah, I really enjoyed that stuff. Like once I had a chance to step back and reflect and spend some time away from it, it was like, but I'm really good at it. I really do like it. And at the end of the day, if I was just doing these things, these deals all day long, it's like, it gives me energy. Right. So now I'm recreating a career around these strengths. And so when you say strengths I think it makes a little more sense, but define for me what a strength-based career coach does, or what that is, strengths-based career.
Right. So it's based off of Gallup's
Mhm.
CliftonStrengths assessment. Some people
Okay.
know that as Strengths Finders. It's owned by Gallup, and it's this assessment that's based on studying success
Mhm.
and the talent themes of how to be successful. And it's scientifically based. It's not some woo, survey somebody thought up.
Right.
And when you take the assessment, it narrows down to there's 34 talent themes, and it
Mhm.
tells you what are your top 5, what are your top 10
Right.
talent themes.
Yep.
And your talents are how you naturally think, feel, and behave.
Mhm.
They're ingrained in you. I call it your thumbprint.
Mhm.
It's your God-given, God put
Mhm.
them inside of you is how I look at
Right.
it.
Right, right.
And it's up to us to discover what they are
Mhm.
and use them. And what has happened is that so many times we talked a little bit about this already, that because they are so natural to us,
Mhm.
we don't recognize that, oh, that's unique to me.
Right. And so for people who aren't familiar with that assessment, the Strength Finder 2.0, or like myself who've done it, but it's been probably, I don't know, 12, 15 years ago,
Hmm.
give us a little refresher on some of the categories that would pop up, or give us an example of kind of somebody who took the assessment and then what was maybe their top 2 or 3 things, and then how they were able to then use those in practicality, right? So that
Hmm.
we can kind of connect all those dots.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one thing too, if this kind of in the back of your mind, you're thinking like you are, Matt, that like, oh, wait, I think I took that once for this
Hmm.
career I had, because I hear that a lot.
Hmm.
Gallup has your assessment.
Oh, wow.
So if you go to gallup.com,
Okay, hang on, I'm gonna write this down.
and,
Okay,
I can even get you if that's not the right link, I'll get you the right
yeah.
link, but basically gallup.com, and you try to sign in, with
Mhm,
whatever email you think you had when you
mhm,
did it.
mhm.
It's based on your email. If you
Got it.
can't, their tech support will help you figure it out
Oh,
and help you
nice.
log in.
I was gonna
So
say
it's
because that
saved in
email I no
there.
longer have anymore, but
Mhm, mhm.
it would be saved under the email, so I could at least reference it, that email. Yeah,
Exactly. It's
okay.
just your sign
Great.
in. It
Nice.
doesn't have to
Yeah,
be, but they're very they get that all the time.
I
"I know
bet.
I took this, can you help me find it?" kind of thing. So,
Right.
that you can go back in because and just a little side note on that is now you could go in and take the assessment all over again if you
Mhm,
wanted to, but
mhm.
you don't have to because things don't normally change that much for
Got it,
us.
got it.
They may move around a little bit, but it's not worth the time and the investment to take the assessment all over
Got it.
again.
Okay.
I always say the only time to take an assessment again is if major traumatic life events have happened. I mean, major, because that
Right.
can totally shift how we think and feel and behave. But normally it doesn't. They might float around a little bit, but
Mhm.
not enough to make a difference. So,
Got it. Okay.
yeah. So real life examples. Well, I'll start with myself.
Mhm,
So I learned about Clifton Strengths like you. I took the assessment in
mhm.
2016, did
Oh,
nothing
gotcha.
with it. I didn't
Right,
understand it.
right.
Didn't know what to do with it. It was like, yeah, that sounds about right. Sounds like me. Yeah. How'd they know that? And tucked it away.
Right.
Then I was trained. I was in network marketing at the time, and we had one
Mhm,
of our corporate executives went around and did workshops. And it was like, oh, okay, now I'm starting to understand this a little bit more. But then I went to an intimate workshop
mhm,
of about 20 women
mhm,
where he came and trained us and did some one-on-one coaching. And again, I was leading a group of about 100 women at that time.
mhm.
There were parts of it that I always found exhausting to me, and I didn't really understand why,
Right.
and parts I didn't really enjoy. And it was during the smaller workshop that he started talking about the difference between a maximizer, which is one of the themes, and a developer, which is another theme.
Right.
Maximizers love to take something that's already or someone
Mhm,
that's already good and make
mhm.
them superb.
Right. Yep.
I'm high maximizer. I
Yes.
love that. Give me somebody who
Yeah.
already has talent, who knows they're good.
Yep.
Let's work together. Let's get you to that next level.
Yes.
Whereas developers love to start from scratch
Mm. Mhm.
and they love to create something or someone from the
Mhm.
very think like kindergarten teacher would be a
Oh, gotcha.
develop
Uh-huh. Right.
great a
Develop people.
developer would make a
Yep.
great kindergarten teacher. Like, let
Right.
me see little increments. Let's do
Yep.
baby steps. And they
Right.
get joy from that.
Mhm.
Neither's right or wrong. No
Right. It's
talent
just
thing is
different
right or
skill
wrong.
sets and different right. Exactly.
Yep. And so developers do that. Well, I was spending most of my day-to-day work developing people. And that was just like, that's why I'm
Hmm.
tired. That's why I'm
Right.
exhausted. So that was the beginning of actually me realizing I may need to make a career change.
Oh, wow. Hmm.
Because I knew unless I was willing to get out and hustle again, which I wasn't,
Right.
I was never really going to spend most of my time maximizing.
Right.
I was developing, and that's low for me.
Right.
Um, so that was one of the things for me that really was an aha. Another one of my clients, Andrea, high learner. She was a teacher.
Hmm.
She'd quit her teaching job because it was just, she was stressed out, burnt out, COVID, and all the
Right.
things that
Yeah.
teachers had to deal with.
Hmm.
And she was just at this stuck place of not knowing where to go next, what she wanted to do.
Hmm.
And one of our very first sessions, we got talking about her learner. And learners are, that is one of the themes that is pretty much what it sounds
Sounds like.
like.
Right.
They love to learn. Learners, we
Right.
love to learn.
Right.
And we have a need to learn.
Hmm.
And we talked about how her learner is like breathing for her.
Hmm. Right.
That if she's not learning
Learning. Yep.
something, she's not going to feel like herself.
Hmm.
And something's missing in her life. And that was so huge for her. Almost like I know, don't always like the word permission, but it was almost
Hmm.
like she then had permission that, wait,
Right.
I need to incorporate learning into
Hmm.
my day-to-day structure, whether it be reading a book, watching something, she had to do that. I said, that is essential for you, just like breathing and water,
Right.
And that changed so many things for her because
Hmm.
she realized the year she had taken off, she wasn't learning. And that's why she felt
Oh,
herself spiraling
got it.
even worse. So,
When we look at team building, and I didn't appreciate that maybe when I was earlier in my career because it was more of a mentorship mentee, mentor mentee model where I was
mhm,
basically hiring people that were like me and then
mm,
training them because it was a sales organization. I
mhm,
had a real estate firm. So basically it was like, I'm a salesperson. I'm training other people to be a salesperson. So it was that dynamic. But then as I got into companies that were more scalable and had lots of employees, then it was tougher for me because I wasn't used to building out a team that had different strengths and different
mhm.
skill sets. And so it took a lot longer and it was a lot more painful for me to learn those things. It's like, no, 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 I need that where I would have considered that deliberator position like negative
Right.
and an anchor on getting progress done. As I've evolved as a leader, I get to the point where I'm like, no, 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 I want that perspective because now my job isn't to drive, drive, drive. My job is to take in information from all these different roles and then discern what is the path forward
Mhm.
versus let's just go and we'll figure it out. That I've learned the hard way that can be a lot more painful than not.
Right, right, right. And it is, it's figured out like, okay, this is the way I naturally do want to think, feel, and behave, though. So, how can I do that in a realm but still get the best results
Right.
there?
Yes.
Because you could be and it's not really a weakness, but it is, they call it a blind spot too, that
Mhm.
each theme does have a blind spot to it.
Right.
So, which can show up if we're not mature in it.
Right.
If we're, like you just shared, as we grow, we tend to just become more self-aware, I think,
Right. We
naturally,
hope.
hopefully,
We hope,
right?
right?
That's the goal, right? That's
Right. That
why
is
you're
the
doing this
goal that we
podcast,
so
right?
right, that we become right. So back to kind of the original thing we posed at the very first of the show, kind of this mid-career burnout, and then you
Mm,
reframed that as mid-career boredom. What are some of the symptoms of that?
mhm. Well, I think, obviously well-being,
Mhm.
when you're just feeling that angst of inside that, the stomach churning, the dread of going to work, coming home burnt out, sometimes even illness. I mean, it
Mhm.
can go that far if we really truly are burnt out and we let it manifest that bad. It can
Mhm.
show up in so many different ways because all those emotions and feelings, they're going somewhere. And if we keep
Right.
them inside, it's going to come out as usually some sort of health issue.
Mhm.
It can also show up as displaced anger.
Mhm.
Um, I see that and I experience that for myself that I'm unhappy in my job. My
Mhm.
husband loved his job and I would get bitter about
Right, you'd resent him for it more than this.
Yeah.
You're like, "You
See,
suck."
right? Yeah,
Right? No,
exactly.
but I get it. You're like,
You know?
I want you to be happy, just not that happy."
Right, right.
Right.
So even like weird things like that, obviously you spend the weekends dreading Monday.
Right. And so so if we take that and say, and
Mhm,
I wanted to really use that so that anybody listening or watching us, can understand kind of, because I think, again, we all go through it. This isn't unique to any individual. We all, if we stay at a
mhm,
job long enough, we're going to go
mhm,
through this. That's just part of
mhm.
life. Kind of, I think in a good way, it's part of life because it's like a wake up call to make sure that we're in alignment with our, skills and goals and
Right.
values, and those things change over, like, values do change over time. Where I value to spend my time changes. Before I had kids,
Oh,
it was
yeah.
mostly work. Once I had kids, it's like, oh wait, it took a while, but it's like, oh, I have to shift my values. Now family is more important than work. But
Right,
that's a shift in values.
right.
Um, so then when somebody's at that step where they know that they're bored, burnout, don't feel a sense of purpose like they used to, don't feel driven like they used to, and to your point, are dreading kind of the going to work or going in on Monday or logging in or checking email,
Mhm,
what's next?
mhm. Yeah. And
It
also just that not fulfilled too. I didn't, you
Uh-huh.
kinda
Yeah,
alluded that that's a huge thing today. It's just not feeling fulfilled, like
right.
that feeling. Um, but what's next is really, I think that's where the self-discovery begins of really, and that's like when I'm working with a client, the first thing is go take the CliftonStrengths assessment. Let's see
Right.
what's really happening here. And what I have seen is once they take that and start to become that, see, oh, wait. I mean, sometimes it's really clear that this is why I'm not happy because
Mhm.
I'm living down in my bottom 34 themes instead of my top five.
Got it.
And
Right.
it almost becomes to me that it's this like two roads that are parallel.
Mhm.
And one is you want to start looking, is there something else I should be doing? Is there a different career I should be doing? And that's a whole process. Like,
Right.
you go through, I take people through, you look at your values,
Mhm.
what's your mission? What are you called to, there's so many different layers there to look at. But
Mhm.
strengths is a huge that compass point, that compass rose I look at. And on the other hand, you're over here because for most people, they can't just jump ship. If
Right.
they're,
Yeah.
they can't just quit the job today
Right.
and start career search. You got to keep both lanes
Mhm.
moving on
Going.
both lanes.
Mhm.
So over here, you want to look at, again, pulling those strengths and look and see, okay, what strengths can I start using? How can I come about this job different? This I see a lot, and I was in sales. So usually there's the sales workbook or this, the
Mhm.
number one salesperson in the company. We're going to do it the way they did
They
it.
do it. Right. Yeah.
Well, that doesn't work.
Right.
You're high relationship building. You have high
Right.
relationship building themes, and they may be high influencer.
Mhm.
The way you approach things looks totally different.
Mhm.
So it may be that the way you've been approaching the current job just needs to change a little.
Right.
And if you have that freedom to do that, then that means this road that's smoother over here. And you
Mhm.
may stop going on this lane altogether because you figured it out over here. For a lot of people I see, they stay on this road, but they're still moving on this road to see, well, what else is out there? Let me just investigate this a little bit more because I feel like I am in the
Career
wrong
field.
company, the wrong career.
Right.
Yep, and they start going on this other road.
And what percentage of the people, because obviously by the time people get to you,
Mm.
they understand they need to do something. This isn't I mean, they don't wake up one morning and say, "Okay, I'm gonna call Sherry because I don't know where I'm at." They kinda get that they're stuck and burnout, bored. Right, they've felt that pain long enough to want to do something about it versus it's day 1 of that cycle. And so when they get there, what percentage do you think, kind of decide that they need a completely different career, and what percentage kinda recreate themselves within the current career they're in? Even if they change companies, they still, are doing a similar thing. Like, if they were in sales, they're still in sales, but a little different maybe how they deliver. So what percentage do you think
Mhm.
that is, that kinda change versus just shift how they're working within an organization?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Just from my own
Uh-huh.
research perspective on people I've worked with. And I would almost say it's a third, a third, a third.
Okay. So I missed an
So,
option.
so that a third
Uh-huh.
are, I know I need to change.
Yep.
And there a lot of, probably that third is actually going into, I'm going to create my own business.
So they're gonna go be a solopreneur or they're gonna go do a startup.
Yep,
Got it.
consulting, whatever,
Consulting, right. Okay. Mhm.
that they're gonna do their own thing because they know
So
that's the way to get to where they wanna be. A third, figure out how to just shift like we were talking about,
mhm,
just shift a few things and they become maybe they're not managers anymore. I see that happen a lot. They
right.
realize it's managing people that's stressing them
Stressful.
out. They were
Yeah.
great in their
Yeah.
job,
Mhm.
but they didn't it's the promotion
But they got
happened and
promoted because they were good at their
Mhm.
job, and now
Yep,
they are not good at their job anymore because
exactly.
their strength isn't to develop people or to manage
Right,
people, right?
right. It's two totally different things. Being a great salesperson and managing salespeople,
Totally different.
two totally different.
And I
Yeah.
would say as a salesperson, managing salespeople, I think is one of the tougher other than that you can motivate them fairly easily, but
Mhm.
they're always challenging with salespeople.
Right. Um, so that third just figures that out.
Yep.
And then sadly, the other third stays stuck
Oh,
and they
yeah, yeah, yeah,
don't
yeah.
even do anything about it. And they're the
Right.
ones that break my heart.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so
Mhm.
they kinda stay complacent where they're at because they've
Mhm.
just been doing it too long. It's kinda like once they're in the rut, they just stay in the rut.
Mhm.
And even though they see that that's not good for them, they don't have the strength or the courage, and I'm doing that as a challenge. They don't have the strength or the courage to
Mhm.
get up out of that rut, if
Yeah.
that makes sense,
Yes.
right? And that is
Mhm.
sad because that's just fear, right? That's just fear of the
It is.
unknown.
Right. Right. And it's scary. I mean, it is really scary
Mhm.
to do something different. And the other thing too is I feel like a lot of society, this is going back to how you started with the generations.
Uh-huh. Yep.
And it depends on how we were raised and
Right.
what we were modeled. Because if you think about, a grandparents' model, you there was no thought of whether or not I liked my job.
Right. I just did my job,
You
right?
just did your job and got your gold watch when you retired. Like, there
Right.
was just
Right.
no thinking about it.
Right.
Granted, I think lifespan afterwards is much shorter than what we have today.
Right.
So that was just the way life was. And then, the next generation ish that I'm like on the bottom cusp of like, I want to like my job, but I need benefits. And I never
Right.
fell into this, but that's my generation was,
Yeah.
but what's the good salary? What's the
I need the stability.
safest, the
Yeah.
stability,
Yep.
the benefits, the retirement, that was such a huge thing. Or the salary because we wanted the McMansions and,
Right. Right.
it's all about that. And well, that didn't work.
Mhm.
But now this younger, newer, I see it with my sons are all in their 30s.
Mhm.
That doesn't that doesn't work for them. Like,
Right.
especially my youngest son who's 32, like, no, I want fulfillment. I want to make a difference. I want impact. I want
Right.
freedom. I don't want to work 40 hours a week. Now he's a
Right.
hard worker. Like he is a
Right.
hard worker. And he's not lazy,
Right.
but he wants to enjoy his life too.
Yep.
So it's a very interesting thing to watch this generational thing. So going back, I think some people say stuck because if they're surrounded by everybody else who's
Mhm.
safety security minded, it's
Right.
really, really hard to break free from.
Yep.
So you need to surround yourself. If you feel like, oh, that's me, get in a space, risk takers, get in a
Mhm.
space of other people doing something different. And so, start surrounding yourself with other people who are doing it. And that gives you the courage to start stepping out and doing that yourself.
Oh, yeah, totally, right. I mean, otherwise you're gonna get stuck in the rut. And and as I, think about my own life and friends that I've had, it seems like that in my own path and in their path, we've stayed in the rut longer than we should have. Like that decision should have been made. It's kind of like you can never fire somebody fast enough, right?
Right.
I mean, that's just the way it is. I've talked to managers, I've talked to leaders. It's like when you think that you should fire somebody, 95% of the time you should fire them right then. There's very few people that actually will morph as long as they've been obviously coached and I mean all the proper things have been done. It's not that they made a mistake and you fired them, but when I look at kind of this, I guess I'm trying to lend encouragement to people that are in that space or in that rut. I found very few people regret doing something different because there's a sense of courage and there's a sense of at least I tried it. Even if they go back to the same job, even if they go back to the same exact company, there's this at least knowing that I went and I tried something different. And you know what? I didn't like it that much. And I did come back to, but it was better that I tried it and I won't even say failed, tried it and experienced it than not trying at all. Because then if you don't try that thing or have the courage to do that thing, you never know. I think you just die with the song left in you. Even if you come back to the same job, the song at least gets sung. And by that, I mean, at least you know. If you don't know, that is, you said it's kind of sad if you never ever see what's actually in there, right?
Mm.
It, it's like life is meant to be lived. And I know we all probably take too long to make the decisions that ultimately are good for us because we do overthink and overcomplicate these things. I do. I
Mhm.
know, most people do.
Mhm.
But ultimately, that discovery, that self-discovery, job discovery, career discovery is important to your overall life satisfaction of knowing that, yeah, I was on the right path and I can go back. In fact, I've literally had companies where people left to explore that. And when they wanted to come back, we welcomed them with open arms because it was like, we're glad that they left because they were dissatisfied or not happy. And we're super happy they came back because now have actively chosen to be with
Mhm.
us. And so
Right.
we know that they know that they want to be here versus always questioning it. Right?
Right.
It's like you have to go out, you have to move out of your parents' house and find out what the world's like to see how much you actually love your parents.
Right.
Right? Right?
Yeah. Or you have to buy a boat and take a trip on it till you realize, "Oh,
That you don't wanna be on a
I don't wanna
boat.
do this anymore."
So, yeah, Sherry and I were talking pre-show. She's on a boat. They realized pretty quickly in a couple of months in that they uprooted their life to go on a boat and go on this wonderful adventure, and then they realized they don't really like being on the boat, so now
No.
they're selling it. So if anybody wants to buy a boat, if you're not on YouTube, switch over to YouTube and you can see some of Sherry's boat behind her. But they are actively
Yeah.
selling their boat. So
Yeah.
so feel free to
Yeah.
but
But
I hope it's okay I told that story, Sherry. I didn't
oh,
mean to out you, but
100%. No,
you
I was gonna
okay.
no, I was gonna share that
Yeah,
because it plays so well, and actually, I've been talking about this a lot on my podcast on
right,
how this whole experience with my husband and I that it's so in alignment with people's careers
right,
and the mindset.
right.
And because if we had never done this,
Yes, 110%.
we would have been on our deathbed or
Right,
thinking about it forever, thinking like, "Oh, we should have, would have, what would that have been like?" Because in your
right.
mind, it's always better.
It's a fantasy, right? You would
It's
have
a
if you hadn't actually
fantasy.
lived the fantasy, you wouldn't know that
Mhm.
it's actually still reality.
Right. But you would have that deep sense of regret.
Right,
And now we can say, "You know what? We did it, and
right,
hey, we made it's not what we wanna do the rest of our lives, but we made great friends, great experiences, saw places we would have never done, and we did it," And
right.
I even had a friend, message me, and she said something along the lines of, "Oh, I'm so sorry it didn't work out for you." And I emailed her back and I said, "But it did.
Did work out, right? It did
It did
work
work
out.
out.
Found
We
out
just."
what we don't want.
Exactly. I was like, "That is not how we're looking at this at all." It was
No.
just like, "Okay, well, that was interesting. That was fun. We learned a lot about each other."
Right,
Even after 38 years of marriage, I see a
right,
different side of my husband I didn't know that was there. Um, but it's like, "No, it worked. We're done with it.
right.
We're
Yeah.
gonna go and we're not going all the way back to where we came
Yeah, you're
from."
gonna end up in a different it's not like you're moving
But
back in the house that you
no,
moved from. You're gonna end up with a
no.
different trajectory, a different life,
Right.
even if it's just incremental difference because
Yeah.
you're not gonna go back and live in the place that you lived, right?
Right. And it's the same thing for anybody looking at their career that go try something. Like you
Yes.
said, you can probably go back, hey, especially today.
Yeah. Oh,
If you're a
totally.
good employee,
Yeah.
they will hire you back.
And the
I'd almost bet money on that. Like,
and they'll pay you
yeah,
more money to come back.
right,
You never
right.
come back at the same rate. That was the thing. When people came back to the company, it's like, "Wait a second. I'm paying you more now than when you worked here before. This is
It's
why I
like
have more
Sirius Radio,
experience."
right? We
Right.
canceled Sirius Radio because I was tired of paying $29.99. Now they want us back for $5 a month. Like it's the opposite of that. But it's like,
Now you got
no.
the upgrade. Didn't even know it.
Yeah, but
Uh,
yeah, they'll welcome you. Most companies will welcome you back, but go test and try. You may not want to go back, but
right.
we
Yeah.
don't know until we're out there and in it and trying things. So
110%.
yeah.
Is there just a piece of wisdom that you've learned or you've gleaned over your life, in any area that you're like, you know what? If people just knew this, they'd maybe be able to live more fulfilled lives. Or if they just knew this, maybe they would be able to just take a breath. I mean, is there some piece of wisdom that you use or that you just have learned that you're like, wow, I just wish other people knew this?
The one thing that's coming to mind really, and it's not that unique, but the fact that life is short.
Hmm.
It is really short. And you may think you have all the time in the world, but we aren't promised tomorrow.
Right.
And you know what? We are meant to live a fulfilled life, to have fun in this life, and to be the best person we can be. So don't wait. Just, go on the adventure. Go figure out what makes you tick and what makes you happy and just start doing it, within reason for the happy. But, so yeah, but life is
Yes.
short.
Yeah.
Life is really, really short.
We blink and it's yes. Right.
Mhm. Yeah.
When we first were going to have kids, which is about 10 years ago now, we had a married couple that their kids were in college or even older. And they looked at us and Erica, my wife's pregnant at the time, and they said that the days are long, but the years are short. And I
Mhm.
think that really applies to life. A lot of times we just get in this thing where the days seem long. It's like, oh, and when I say long, they just seem like, maybe monotonous. We're doing the same thing. But if we look back, they just go super, super fast. It's like, wow, where'd that, I
Mhm.
mean, it seems like every January or every December, it's like, wow, where did that year go? I mean, the
Right.
year just evaporated. I thought, turned around and it was December again. So
Right.
I
Yep.
agree. And you know, life's, I think we need rest and we need recuperation, but we also need, to kind of plan our lives or we just kind of get swept up in the current and
Mhm.
end up at the
Yeah.
end of our lives with regrets or with things that are left undone or unfinished. So I completely agree. Life is gotta live it. Well, thank you so much for coming on. People, if they want to, you have a social media presence. What's your social media
So
stuff? Where do you
I
hang
hang
out?
out way too much on Facebook. I'm really
Okay.
not
Yep.
on I have a LinkedIn account and I have an Instagram, but I don't really do anything there. So I'm
Perfect.
over on Facebook. I'm that generation. So
Yeah. No, I am too. I am too. So Sheri Miter. So it's Miter. So
yes. Hmm.
Sheri Miter. And so
Hmm.
you're on Facebook, and then you have your website, which is
Oh,
sherimiterco.com. Yeah,
correct.
co.com. And that's kind of
Hmm.
where people could learn more about you. You do have a blog, you got a podcast. You talk
Hmm.
about the Clifton Strength resources, services, and a little bit more about your life. So it's been awesome having you on the show today and just learning a little bit more about you. And thank you for reminding me about the Strength Finder stuff and living more purposefully.
Oh, you were welcome, Matt. Thanks again for having me on the show.
Thank you for being a part of the BriteVibe podcast. For more information, go to britevibe.com. That's BRITE vibe, VIBE.com. Thank you for listening.